30 years old, and I've been doing various forms since I was 18. I got my start in acrobatics because I was actually doing a lot of ballet in a small town, and there aren't very many men doing ballet in small towns, and so I wanted to have a little bit more of a male role model, and so I started taking some classes at the gym, some adult gymnastics classes, and grew more and more involved in the gym and began to develop into more of an acrobat than a dancer, actually. Yeah, that's an interesting question because I've struggled with that. In the dance school that I was training in, there was an emphasis on performance, which from the very first show that I did was after I'd only been dancing for a few months, and I had a small part, and so she believed in quickly getting us into performance, and since that was sort of the ultimate goal of the art form. And I can see the value of that, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten more shy about performing. I'm a naturally shy person, and I overcame a lot of that to perform, but the kind of shyness that I'm speaking of now is not so much stage fright as it is a sense that the performance actually rushes my sense of readiness, and I end up skipping over important parts of my development. And so I've sort of scaled back performance and put more emphasis on training and playing, actually, allowing more play in my training, which I think performance tends to gear you more towards a rigorous training, whereas having the freedom from performance allows you to really play with your training. And in playing, I think you can explore more, you can form yourself more as an individual, your own personal style, and you can basically overcome certain psychological barriers in a more natural way. I think ultimately training is not what helps us overcome ego, but that we overcome ego when we learn to accept ourselves and our own limitations in the context of discipline, whatever it is. So when you start out and you have this sense that by training you can become anything you want, and you're very driven by how you look, how other people perceive you, how you're going to look on stage, how awesome the trick is that you're going to be doing. And I think as you come to a more natural understanding of your own strengths and weaknesses, in a sense you become a more balanced artist, first of all. Something more natural to say, something more personal to say. And in that sense there's more ego in that, but you've also released that sort of egoism where you're striving and trying to be, in a sense, something that you're not. And so I think that you have to go through that stage, and it must help you establish a relationship with the art form, but ultimately you want to move away from that training mentality. I was just thinking about this because I was talking to a friend of mine about how long you can force yourself to continue at something that you are doing, that you're willing yourself to do when you're isolated from the community. I've noticed that because I moved down to Phoenix recently, and so a lot of what I've been doing is just on my own, kind of continuing things that I'm interested in. And you get to a point where your willpower fails you, and wherever that is for you as an individual, you can do it for a long time, and then you start to wonder what the point is of continuing. And it becomes sort of a selfish endeavor. It's something that you do, it's gratuitous, kind of, something you do to give yourself solace, or to find some sort of happiness in what you're doing, and without it being productive in any other way. So when you have a community around you of like-minded people, there's a value placed on what you're doing that is outside of yourself, and you start being able to share in that practice, and it allows you to give back to the community from what you know, and to gain new insights about yourself and about the art form from others. And I think that really having a strong community around you is essential to remaining inspired by an art form. Yeah, I suppose that on a larger scale, my philosophy about art is that art is really more of a state of seeing things in a new light every time you see them, not getting into a stale sense of knowing what an object is or a thing is because you've seen it before, because you've seen your door 100 times, the door to your house or something. If you stop seeing that door as a particular door, and you just see it as a door, then you don't have a very artistic way of going about life, because to be artistic, I think you have to always see, even if you're seeing the same thing again and again, you see it with that day's emotion, or in that day's light, or in that day's entropy or something, door falling apart. So it's kind of a weak metaphor, but I think that if you have the ability to cross-train, it gives you the ability to cross-pollinate yourself, and to be able to see your work in the light of another art form, or another community engaged in another art form. And I think that always provides richness, and so I think it's an essential thing to make connections between art forms. I've always thought that whenever we are pursuing something that has a tangible reality, I guess, something like acrobatics, or music, or dance, or even something like soccer or sport, you're always made aware of your particular way of approaching that discipline. So how is it that you learn? How is it that you feel about yourself? How is it that you protect yourself when faced with new information or new situations? How is it that you respond to direction? How is it that you respond to criticism? So I think that whenever we study something like this, it gives us a good portrait of ourselves. You can think of it as a little laboratory that you can use for self-study. And so I think when you do acrobatics, you're watching how you respond to fear, or how fear comes out of you when you are in a situation where your safety is at stake, and how do you come up with tools to deal with that situation. Everybody has fears, but not everybody learns how to master those fears or govern those fears so that they don't take control of that person. And so what we were speaking about was, I think coaching in particular, and the value of coaching as a way of helping the child or the person, the student, to feel stronger, to grow. And I think that acrobatics is an excellent way for that to happen. I think any sort of movement art is an excellent way to learn about yourself and to engage the mind and the body together. That's a good question, because I don't think it has a real answer for me. I find inspiration in lots of things. I think my central interest in intellectual interest in life, I suppose, is study of perception. I love to think about perception and altered perceptions, and I think that that's a vein that's common to all of my pursuits, whether it's music or mathematics or anything, and language. I think the way that we perceive the world around us is fascinating. And the other thing that motivates me is the study of systems. So how things are put together. So in gymnastics or acrobatics, we have progressions where there's a intricate layering of parts that build up the whole, and there's a relationship between gravity and friction and momentum, and then between the parts that we learn on the floor and the parts that we learn in the air, and the muscles that are strengthened when we do one exercise that will aid us in another exercise, and how that system, that complex living system, fits together is great interest to me, and it is a common thread in all the other pursuits that I have as well. Yeah, I think you definitely miss what you have once it's gone, and I do miss the individuals and the community that I had up in Montana. I think that sort of defining characteristic of a community, to me, of a healthy community, is one that is a group of people who are interested in exploring the art, and that there's a sense of safety, emotional safety within that community. That it's okay to try new things and mess up and be in the type of judgment that you receive will be in a spirit of betterment, as opposed to sort of a derogatory spirit, which you see often in unhealthy communities, I would say. So if we have a community that has a general spirit of camaraderie, helping each other out, spurring each other on when it's needed, support when it's needed, a sense of joy, I think those things are really what I look for in a community. And I was exploring the valley, going to some different gyms, and you can really feel the energy at the gym when you go in. And for me, I immediately gravitate towards the ones where I sense a spirit of positivity, where it's not that you're blind to the faults, but that you choose to enhance the positive aspects of what's going on, as opposed to focusing on the negative. Many times, lots of injuries. I think it goes with the territory. You can't really escape being injured. You want to minimize your risks, obviously, and I think you get a better sense of like how tired you are. So when you're fatigued, you're more likely to get injured and this kind of thing. So I work to avoid injury as much as I can, but I understand that it comes with the territory, and as a result, you have to be somewhat philosophical about it when it happens. And so, you know, I've cursed the heavens many times when I've been injured, but what I found is that you can always divert your energy into another element that needs work. Like, say you hurt your shoulder, well, there's plenty of things you can do where you're working on flexibility or jumping or certain types of moves that don't require the strength of your shoulder. And you hurt an ankle, well, suddenly you're doing more hand balancing, or, you know, spending more time working on spotting other people, or finding some element of the art form that you've been neglecting, or that you can then divert more of your time into. So I find that answers well for the times that I've been injured. I've worked on bars or something when I've hurt my ankle, or I've, you know, focused on doing trampoline skills when my shoulder has been out of whack. And so, while I don't wish injury on anyone, I do think it can be an educational thing. It also, if you have a particular muscle group that's injured, you become much more aware of how you use that muscle. So like, if your hamstring is pulled, then you notice when you walk how often you actually use your hamstring. Even though in a normal state you would never know that you're using your hamstring, since it hardly uses any strength from the hamstring to walk. But it can help you learn efficiency of movement when you're aware of how much or how little you're using a particular muscle. So I think injury has a very good place in teaching us. I struggle with confidence, I think, and which you'll probably see in my video. You see a certain cautiousness in the way I approach movement, and it pervades all of my life, actually. As we were talking about earlier, that caution is just part of my character, and so, you know, it's nice to embrace it, to be able to embrace it, but it is something that it annoys me about my own approach, and I would like to feel a little bit more free to fly, free to really just go head first into things. So that's something I struggle with, and I haven't yet come to terms with in my own process. Yeah, as I said in a previous question, I feel like art is more about approaching each day as if it were a new day. And of course your experiences add up, and that enriches your life and enriches your art. But I think you don't have to be creating a product to be an artist. Although being engaged in the process of creation, I think, opens up a lot of avenues in our minds, in our bodies, and our hearts, and I think it's a very valuable thing, and it also allows us to have a conversation with each other as artists. But at heart, I feel like you can have a very artistic life and leave nothing, no artifacts behind. Again, I have a long answer for this, as usual. But yeah, I think in a perfect world, the movement should be enough. As you can see with like the capoeiristas, where it's just playing with it all day long that trains them. They don't think of doing push-ups for the sake of doing push-ups. They think if they do push-ups, they're doing a dance with it. You know, there's something more integrated. You see it with the break dancers as well. They practice the same things again and again, but you don't see an attitude of, oh, I really need to do push-ups so that I can be strong enough for that. I can't speak for all of them, but I get the sense that in a lot of ways it's the doing of the activity that creates the strength and that creates the muscles that they need. In a not so perfect world like the one we live in, I think that conditioning is very valuable in injury prevention, and you know, especially if you are doing the activity not as a part of your normal life, but as they say, once a week or twice a week thing, or even 1 hour a day, where it's not something that pervades your life. Like if we were laborers and we spent all day lifting stuff, we would be strong in the ways, you know, that we trained all day long by just working. On the other hand, we might be weak in certain other ways, which happens to laborers, and so they, you know, end up with back problems or something because of weak abs. So the value of conditioning to me is one of injury prevention and keeping the body balanced, because unless you're doing all kinds of cross training, you're going to become your muscles are going to become better at doing certain things like handstands. You get too good at handstands, you're going to have problems with your rhomboids and your neck. So you got to do pull-ups, you know. And if you do too many handstands and pull-ups without also doing push-ups and, you know, going for runs and swimming to stretch everything back out, then you're going to just end up a tight ball of muscle that is all cramped up and in pain most of the time. So I think that, yeah, I think conditioning is essential to maintaining a balanced physique and an injury-free physique. But in a perfect world, our own activity would just naturally shape our bodies. Well, I think you need to have a clear set of goals so that you can have a way of measuring your success. Measurable success is really the key to staying inspired in training. If you have a way of saying, I am improving, then you will find motivation to continue training. That's where it is different than play, because with play you have a different set of motivations, and even if you aren't actually improving, there's something else that's engaging you. The spirit of play is engaging you. But in a training environment, you need to be seeing progress, and you need to always be improving. And so if you reach a certain goal, you already have to be planning the next goal, and it has to be planned in increments that are achievable. So I think that's one key to a successful training regimen. And I think another thing that is necessary is a sense of looking forward towards the next time instead of dwelling upon the previous time. So we do learn from our mistakes, but instead of always reflecting on what we've done wrong in the previous time, we want to set the intention in our mind of what we're going to do right the next time. That's a lesson that I learned from a mentor of mine named Terry Hamilton in Missoula, Montana. And he has a lot of very wise things to say about training. But if you stand there ready to take your turn and you're still thinking about the last time, what you did wrong, you're going to do it again. You're going to keep repeating that same wrong thing over and over again. Because that's what your mind is thinking, and that's what your brain is telling your body to do. So instead you let that go and you think, this time I'm going to do this. I'm going to keep my arms straight. Do it. Even if you don't, the next time you come back, this time I'm going to keep my arms straight, and then you go again. So I would say those two things are essential. Good goal setting and thinking about the next time in a positive way. Well, I suppose that I naturally gravitate towards being a teacher, but I can't really help it. Somewhat pedantic. I like to explain things. I like for my own understanding, if not for someone else's. I like to see people improve and grasp things, and I like to break things down into parts and find the working parts of the whole. And also just to enjoy watching people perform the whole, which sometimes the whole is not a sum of its parts. But I would like to be a practitioner as well. I certainly practice a lot of things. I have a rather hard view of my own abilities, and so when pressed, I often shy away from calling myself a practitioner. But I do enjoy the doing of the art forms, the thrill or the enlivening spirit of being physical. So there's that, and I'd say I don't set myself out as a leader. I'm not quite ambitious enough, and I don't really organize people that well. If called upon, then I am more than happy to take that role. And I think as a teacher, you kind of have to be the leader in certain ways. But yeah, I guess teacher is more where I fall. That I enjoy trying to find the purpose of what I'm doing, which is kind of weird to say, but part of the struggle with doing this kind of stuff is that you wonder what the purpose of it is. Still being motivated to do it and trying to find out why.